Somebody give me a sound check, make sure our sound is okay. Lots of folks joining so far. Doug says, sounds good, fantastic. Got 12 people on so far. Good morning. Yes, you don't need to adjust your screen. I'm wearing body armor this morning. That's going to be the topic of discussion on today's Coffee with Rich. So thank you to the 14 folks that are joining me. Good to have you guys on this morning. Please like and share before we get started. I got a good show for you today. It's may run over 30 minutes. I hope not. I'm going to try to be respectful of your time. I see Dr. John Eden is on this morning. Good morning, sir. Always glad to have you. Josh is on. Walt. Jock, good morning. Mr. Michael Gentili, one of my very best friends, is on this morning. Good morning, Michael. Alan says 5 by 5. Chris says, what's up, Rich? Good morning, Chris. Josh is good to go. Mark is on. Razmik is on. Bill Pecor, good morning, brother. We were in the Marine Corps together. Having breakfast with Rich and Riley. Sweet, man. Awesome. All right, we got 20 folks on this morning. Like I said, I got a heck of a show for you this morning. We're going to talk about ballistic protection on a budget and why that's important and why you might want to consider it and how you can, why in the world you might want to consider having body armor. But before we get into it, as you know, every Friday morning with Coffee with Rich, I got to introduce myself and tell you who the heck you're watching this morning. My name is Rich Brown, American Warrior Society co-host and co-founder of the nation's leading self-defense podcast, The American Warrior Show. Retired Marine Corps officer, former police officer, former corrections officer, American Red Cross, regional manager for disaster preparedness, etc., etc. You want to read the bio, please go do that, AmericanWarriorSociety.com. Swag, as you can see, I'm rocking the classic American Warrior Society shirt, and if you want to pick up some American Warrior Society apparel, please do that at AmericanWarriorShow.com or AmericanWarriorSociety.com. Drinking Pete's coffee out of my Law of Self-Defense cup that Attorney Andrew Bronca sent me, and we're going to be talking about one of his products probably next week. He's got a really cool product out that I really like. And he was kind enough to send me one of these mugs. As you know, Mike and I are a big fan of all the products that Andrew puts out. And the lawful use of force is the only way that you should be thinking about using force, as everybody on here knows. So before I get into the article you need to check out, the show you need to listen to, let's see who's on, because we got almost 30 folks on this morning so far. Please like and share. Tammy is on. Good morning, Tammy. How's Ohio this morning? Walt is on. Just checking in. Back to work for me. And watch the replay. Please go do that. Walt, good to see you. Adam is on. Robert is on. Good morning. Hope it's a chilly morning here in Tennessee. Robert, I'm not sure what it's like there in Kentucky. Ed is on. Good morning. And Rudy is on. Folks, thank you for tuning in with me this morning. We've got 29 folks watching. The show that I'm going to ask you to check out is going to be a show that we did with John Correa of YouTube fame. John, as you know, is famous for taking thousands and thousands of real-life fights and gunfights, dissecting them, and then presenting them to you on YouTube on his show, Active Self-Protection. Well, show number 127, we actually had John on the show. John Correa, if you're out there watching, God bless you, man. You're doing great things. John attended our firearms instructor development class out in New Mexico a couple years ago, and Mike and I got to know John real well, good guy. But he gives us a show on what really happens in fights and breaks it down for you. The article I'm going to tell you to check out is an article I wrote a few years ago entitled, Why I'm Not a Gun Guy. And that when I wrote that, it came as a shock to people who think they know me well and just assume that I'm a gun guy, and I'm really not. And my close friends know, oh no, Rich is not a gun guy. He doesn't know a SIG from a whatever. That's just not my jam. I love and respect those that are, man, and I defer to them as the subject matter experts. I'm more of a defense and security kind of guy. The firearm is part of it, but it's not the end-all be-all. I own one rifle, one shotgun, and a couple handguns. That's all I own. You know, and I prefer to be very proficient with them, and that's what I do with my money. I don't buy a new kit. And if you do, good on you, man. I wish I had your kind of money, but I don't. So anyway, well, I'm not a gun guy, and all these articles are linked so that you can check them out in the show notes for today. So thank you to the 30 folks that are joining me. We're about to get into the subject today, but before we do, let's see who's on. We got 31 folks watching. Rudy says, good morning. Rich Roberts says, chilly here too. Mr. Paul Lively is on. Mr. Paul, good to see you, sir. Always a pleasure to have you on. Mark says, good morning from Toronto, Canada. 34 degrees there. Mark, it's 34 degrees here in Tennessee, which is pretty crazy. Okay, please like and share, because today we're talking about ballistics on a budget. And I guess I'm going to start this discussion about ballistics on a budget when my old partner in crime, Mr. Mike Seeklander, and I was hoping he was going to be on here this morning, but I guess he's sleeping in, bless his heart. But somebody gave us some really old military-grade bulletproof vests back in like 92. And these things were ancient. I mean, the carriers that they were in were literally almost falling apart. So we took them to the range and we thought, we'll shoot these things and see what happens and see if they're still, the Kevlar panels are still working. And guess what, man? We shot everything at those and they did not fail at all. So it got me thinking, if we couldn't punch through them with standard handgun rounds, and these things were at least 20 years old, then maybe there's some efficacy left in old Kevlar equipment. And I'm here to tell you today that I think there is. And then we're going to talk about some of the science behind this and why. Now, I will tell you that I spent most of my, well, not most of my adult life, but a good bit of my adult life wearing body armor all over the world. It was either like this, my old police department bulletproof vest, one of them anyway, or something more like this, which we're going to get into here in just a minute. So running around the world wearing body armor for a living means that people probably don't like you, which I don't understand. But anyway, the first time I probably ever wore a bulletproof vest was when I was a bouncer. I ended up choking this guy out. He comes to, he wants to keep fighting. I spray him with pepper spray. And as he leaves, he tells me, or through a friend who's helping him to his car, I'm gonna come back and spray in the face with my gat. And for those of you boys and girls that don't know what that is, that was the ghetto slang word for pistol back in the 90s. So sure enough, true to his word, he comes back a couple hours later and slides in the parking lot and jacks around and points a gun at me and starts screaming at me and a lot of obscenities. Actually called me the N-word, which is kind of strange. But anyway, went inside the club, locked the club down, dialed 911, et cetera, et cetera. But after that, I was very fearful working the door by myself and having to pat people down and not really paying attention to the crowd, and that this guy would sneak up on your old buddy Rich Brown and shoot me. So I wore a bulletproof vest for a while. Flash forward to when I was a police officer, I was also a state licensed security trainer, and I went around teaching nightclub security how to handle disruptive patrons and getting them state certified. Well, one of the classes I taught, a week later, one of the bouncers was shot and killed by an angry patron that waited for him in the parking lot. So these things do happen. But my point of saying all that is to say a little bit of soft weight body armor probably could have saved that guy's life. So if you're in a profession where you need to wear armor, you need to wear armor. Let's just be honest. As a civilian now myself, there's really not a chance, there's really not necessarily a need that I would need to wear this so much anymore. But then I think back to the riots in Ferguson, or those Korean grocery owners that are standing on top of their stores watching the whole city burn around them, and all they have is their firearms and each other. And I think maybe there's a time to have something like this that costs less than $200 laying in the back of the closet for just in case some sort of civil unrest. I mean, for the price that you can get some of this armor nowadays, some of the budget stuff I'm going to talk about, maybe not a bad idea. I'll leave that decision up to you. Before I get into the history of body armor, let's see who is on. Stacy's joined us. Good morning. Alan says, man, The first vest that was issued was a monster, heavy, bulky, and uncomfortable. And Alan is a retired Virginia State police officer, I believe, or state trooper up in Virginia. Doug says up to 40 viewers now. Hey, 43 viewers, 44. Thank you for joining me. Body armor on a budget, man. Here we go. Please like and share. So if you look back at the history of humans wearing body armor, I'm going to probably start somewhere in the Middle Ages where you have, well, we're all familiar with knights wearing a suit of armor and chainmail, but you also had, moving into the 1600s, arrived something called the buff coat. And the buff coat was worn by cavalry officers and other officers, and it would stop smoothbore handgun rounds, but not smoothbore musket rounds. So the buff coat was made out of oxhide. It's pretty interesting to look at if you find it online. Then we move up to the soldier's bulletproof vest, which was introduced during the Civil War, but not a lot of people wore them, even though that type of protection was afforded to them. It's just something that a lot of men didn't feel comfortable wearing. I've got myself protected, but they're not issuing it to us. I have to go purchase it, and I'm watching my friends get killed around me. Not a cool thing. World War I, they definitely recognized the need for body armor. However, I could find when I was preparing for the show, I could find no instances where it was issued en masse to troops during World War I. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't be until World War II when a guy named Colonel Grow, who was a surgeon of the 8th Air Force, come up with the idea of some sort of flak jacket idea. And the reason it's called flak is the German word for an anti-aircraft gun is like Flackenwaffel. I can't pronounce it, I'm not German. But that's where we get the word flak. And this surgeon, Colonel Grow, said, man, we would save a lot of lives because a lot of young airmen are dying from wounds that could otherwise be non-fatal if they just had some sort of body armor on to protect from that flak. So enter the flak jacket. And it went on several iterations to what we have now. And it wasn't only the good guys like me and you and Colonel Grow and his airmen and then soldiers in later part of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, that would be wearing flak jackets. A lot of bad guys were wearing flak jackets. Matter of fact, there was an Australian bad guy named Ned Kelly who I think a lot of his gang were wearing these steel armor plating that was stopping bullets, and they were able to just run roughshod over those folks there in Australia because they were suited in armor. Then you had murdering Jim Miller, who also wore body armor. In the 1920s and 1930s, we saw a lot of these Bonnie and Clyde type characters that were wearing body armor. And guess what? The good guys had to do. We had to up the ante. We had to start carrying 308s, 30-06s, and stuff like that to defeat the armor that all those bad guys were wearing. So it's not just the good guys that can take advantage of armor, folks. We need to remember that. And if you think back to the North Hollywood shootout, those rounds were having no effect on those two bank robbers there in North Hollywood back in 1997, I think it was. So they ended up having to roll over and skip rounds underneath the truck to hit them in the feet, which weren't covered. Then they were able to fall down and shoot them in the face. So again, it's not just the good guys that can wear armor, so train and plan accordingly. Let's see who's on before I get into the different types of body armor. Let's see. Sydney is on. Paul is on. Thank you to the 46 viewers that are joining me for a little discussion on budget body armor and ballistics this morning. Matt says, good morning, Rich. Been putting this off too long. It was going. Glad you cover it sometimes. Yeah, man. William says, does budget equal less quality? Not necessarily. Stay tuned for that. Sean says, LOL, seems like my first low pro vest at the police department was heavier than my current TAC vest. Yeah, they just get lighter all the time. It's amazing. Jeff has joined us. Wade is on. Matt says, putting off buying it for myself, not you covering it. Oh, gotcha, okay. Jeff is on. Good morning, Jeff. Ray is on. My brother Jeff Brown has joined us. Good morning, Jeff. Jeff has spent a lot of his life wearing body armor as well. He knows what I'm talking about. Paul is on. Greg is on. He says, morning, Rich from Michigan. David says, good morning, sir, from San Francisco Bay. Good morning, sir. And Aiken, good morning. Glad to have you on, sir. We got almost 50 folks. Please like and share because here we go. We're going to talk about, we're talking about body armor on a budget. Gave you a little bit of the history of it. Now let's talk. Basically, it comes in two camps, if you will. You got the hard kind and the soft kind. When we think hard kinds, probably think like a sappy plate. Many of you are, I'm sure, familiar with those. Small arms protective insert. Those are more of they're hard plates. They stop rifle rounds, but they're made out of ceramics. And the two most common ceramics for that is boron carbide or silicon carbide ceramic. Incredibly hard ceramics and armored plating, which will stop rifle rounds. And during the time that sappies were in production, man, they made over 2.5 million sappy plates. So if you can get one of those on a budget from some discounter, might be a good idea. The other thing I'll tell you is, when you think hard, you're probably going to be talking about ceramic, ballistic steel, fiberglass, polyethylenes, or some other products out there that are great at stopping rifle rounds. When it comes to stopping rifle rounds, it's only going to be your hard ballistic panels that stop it. When we move into the soft stuff, currently, now again, 2 years from now, a year from now, 6 months from now, somebody may come up with a way to have soft body armor stop rifle rounds. Currently, that's really not something that's out there. So let's talk about soft. Everybody's probably familiar with Kevlar, but there's actually some other products out there. Spectra, Twarnan, Dyneema is out there. Most of these that fall into that category are ultra high molecular weight polyethylenes. They have these long molecular bonds that allow them to transfer loads by strengthening intermolecular connections. That's a mouthful. But the reason why everybody is running soft body armor instead of hard, man, is primarily because it's lighter weight, less bulky, and more flexible than the hard stuff. So I mentioned Kevlar as being the one that we're probably more familiar with in the products, and I'm going to talk to you about this morning. The ballistic protection that you can get on a budget are all Kevlar. There are other good stuff out there, but when it comes to all these products, these high molecular weight polyethylenes, the interesting thing is, the cool thing is they're non-toxic, odorless, tasteless, so your skin can be in close contact with them, and there's no harm or danger to that, etc. Now, I mentioned that these are long chain molecules. Kevlar is not, interestingly enough, and Kevlar is just the brand name of a really long chemical name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce for you this morning. But it was invented by a Polish-American chemist working for DuPont named Stephanie Kowalik. And I'm not going to get into how she created it, but it's pretty daggone fascinating if you're interested in that sort of stuff. And before I dig into Kevlar a little bit more, got 56 folks on. Please like and share. Let's see what people are saying in the comments section. Then I'm going to start introducing you to some of these products that you can probably pick up on a budget and why you might want to do that. Les says, good morning, sir. First time watching you. I have seen Mike several times, LOI. Man, Mike was on me for probably 2 years before I started Coffee with Rich. He's like, I'm out there all the time doing all this work and you're not. So I've been doing Coffee with Rich probably since September of last year. These Friday shows, and we also have a Monday morning emerging threats that we talk about. So thank you for joining me. I'm very happy to have you. Sean says, good morning to all from Knoxville. Good morning, Sean. You're just down the road. Doug says, I've saved a lot of ballistic vests over the years, put a panel in the school backpack of each of my sons for several years. That's a smart move. And I mean soft body armor. Yeah, Doug, right. Robert says there is some really cool research on super responsive non-Newtonian fluid soft body armor out there that would stop rifle rounds, kind of like how slapping a mixture of cornstarch. Yeah, I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, man, and I'm very hopeful of that. Like on this one right here, you mentioned those non-Newtonian properties. There's trauma pads on the backside of the strike plate, and that's what's in there. I don't really understand all that I probably should know about that, but it helps transfer that force out. Jeff says, good morning all. Sorry I'm late to the party. Technical difficulties. We're just happy to have you here. Eddie is on. Matthew is on. Are you prior military? Matthew says, yeah, man. I spent 23 years in the United States Marine Corps. Retired as a Chief Warrant Officer a few years ago. So, yeah, I did my time wearing body armor. Thanks for joining us, man. So let's talk about Kevlar. Now, Kevlar, as you're probably familiar with, is what these are made of. And this right here is part of the Paget Personnel I'm gonna have to read it, man. Personnel Armor System for Ground Troops. I didn't even know there was a name for this stuff, but what they're referring to is this system right here. This is your personal armor system for ground troops. Consists of a flak jacket and a helmet. Now this helmet right here weighs 3.1 pounds. It's made out of 19 layers of Kevlar that's been molded like this. And it's a level 3A helmet. It's rated by the National Institute of Justice on their scale to be level 3A, which is pretty doggone amazing because level 3A will stop all your hot handgun ammunition, man. That's as high as you can get on the soft body armor scale. So if you can pick up one of these somewhere and you might need that level of protection for God knows what, then knock yourself out. It might be a good thing for you. I just happened to be looking in a sea bag and there it was. I don't know how I got there. But let's talk about, so before we get into this level 3A and level 2A and this is all that stuff, what does all that mean? Well, the National Institute of Justice come up with a rating scale, and it's actually code number 0101.06, which codifies their levels of protection. And it starts with level 1, as you might imagine. Level 1 is pretty much obsolete now. Level 1 will only stop 22 long rifle, 38 special, and I think that's about it. And we say 38 special, we're talking about 158 grain bullet flying at 850 feet per second. So level 1 is almost obsolete now. Then we move into level 2A, and let me show you my level 2A. This is a level 2A vest made by Point Blank, and it's got a hard trauma plate in here, which were kind of popular back in the day. I don't know if they're running them anymore. I think most of them are flexible nowadays, but this was a no kidding hard trauma plate. And it's a level 2A vest. The level 2A will stop 9mm, 357, 45, all this stuff, 32 caliber. But these are slower flying bullets. Like the 9mm, it's a 124 grain flying at 1,090 feet per second. So that's all the level 2A is designed to handle. And that particular vest has two pretty thin Kevlar, very soft panels in it. Thank you to the 51 folks that are on here this morning. Then we move up to level 2. Level 2 stops more your faster 9mm and 357. You're looking at a 9mm round, 124 grain, traveling about 1,175 feet per second. Then we move into level 3A like this is. And the level 3A, now when you move up the ladder scale, obviously you're getting all the ballistic protection that you would have got. So like for a level 3 alpha, you get all the level 1 protection, level 2 protection, 2A protection, etc. So you get up to level 3. That is the highest you can get in soft body armor, is level 3A. And it'll stop 9mm, 124 grain, going about 1,400 feet per second, and all common handgun rounds that you can think of. So level 3A, soft body armor, fast handgun ammunition, and you're gonna be good to go. Which is another thing, you gotta consider, what's your threat model look like? If you're the average civilian and you own a shop and you live in LA or something like that and you're worried about civil unrest, or you live in Ferguson or some of these places where this kind of thing is not uncommon, looting and rioting, and you want to protect your stuff, you're an American, you got the Second Amendment, go ahead and do that. Might want to throw on some body armor though. So you need to think about your threat model. When it comes to level 3, man, that's where you get up to handgun ammunition. Level 3 is these plates, man. This is level 3 protection. And level 3 is designed to stop 7.62 by 51 full metal jacket NATO rounds, or 308 Winchester, traveling about 2,800 feet per second. And that's what it's rated as. And if you get beyond that, level 4 is going to be stopping a 30-06 armor-piercing round. And that moves outside of steel into some of the ceramics and stuff like that, or ceramic steel combinations. That's where you're going to find that. So enough about all that. National Institutes of Justice, levels of ballistic protection. We're going to move into some studies now, but let's see who's on. We got Tony has joined us. Johnson's got here late. Sorry I missed out. Glad to have you, brother. Gene is on. Donald is on. All right. So we talked about this. Now I will tell you that we say, okay, level 3, Rich said it's going to stop. This level 3 vest designed to stop a 7.62 NATO full metal jacket, 2,800 feet per second. I guess it'll stop 5.56 or 2.23 Winchester because that's a smaller bullet. Maybe not. If you look at some of the studies done on the 55 grain green tip ammo, the standard Uncle Sam green tip candy, it will punch right through this stuff. There's some other things that I don't like about steel armor that we're going to talk about here in just a second. So suffice it to say, I would not feel very comfortable just having steel armor if I was back in the Marine Corps again. I think there's some challenges with it. Not saying it's bad for the price, man. Why not? But anyway, I do have some concerns. So I talked about this old point blank vest that was issued to me back in 1996. When it was manufactured in 1996, it's obviously been worn hard, rode hard, and put away wet. And then eventually I retired this one, and they had one custom made for me. This was somebody else's, I guess, that quit, and they gave it to me, but then they had one custom made for me. But that one was manufactured in 1996. Now, that's 24 years ago. So you ask yourself, is that old vest still any good? And I would say probably. Now, probably because if you remember the beginning of the story, I had some vests that were 20 and 30 years old that we shot with all modern handgun ammunition, and I got no penetration on those vests. So maybe that one would work. So I started searching yesterday for hours trying to find anywhere where I could find a scientific study done on aged armor testing. And I finally found one, and there's a link to it in the show notes here today. Biokinetics and Associates, a company up in Canada, were hired by the Canadian Police Research Center to do a study because all Canadian officers have to wear body armor. And the National Institute for Justice says that this armor, that the manufacturer only has to warrant it for 5 years. Now, some of them will warranty their armor for 10 years, but most of them says it's 5 years and then you got to get rid of it. They're not going to back it any longer past that. Because one of the things that with Kevlar is ultraviolet light, like sunlight, will break Kevlar down, but it doesn't break it down as fast as you may think. So what the Canadian Police Research Center wanted to find out is, when do we really need to start changing out vests on our Canadian police officers? When do those Kevlar fibers start to lose their efficacy? So what they found was they had 159 vests come in to do the study. They threw 9 of them out, and they took a sample size of 150 vests. The ages of the vests range from 3 years old to 17 years old. And they shot them with a variety of ammunition. And what they found was only 2%, I think there was actually 3 vests that were penetrated. I'm sorry, let me use the word they used, perforated. And the problem with this study was I could not find anywhere where the definition of perforated means. Does perforated mean it punched all the way through all the plates of the vest? Or does it mean that it penetrated one layer of Kevlar but was stopped by other layers of Kevlar? I couldn't find it in the study, which is kind of disturbing because they explain every other term, but they don't explain perforated. Anyway, only 2% showed perforation of some of the hot 357 rounds. None of them had any perforation with a 9mm handgun. And but here's the problem. So of all those old vests, only 2% had any perforation, but 70% of them did show back face signature deformation. That is where the back panels really bend in toward the body. And that kind of makes sense. If you've handled any new body armor and then any old body armor, you know that the older stuff is really pliable, very soft and flexible. Well, the problem with that is it's going to transfer a lot of that energy into you. You won't necessarily be struck by the bullet, but you will definitely get a lot of back face deformation pushing into your body. So based on that study, man, the aged armor testing study, I would say body armor on a budget, man. If you can find some old police trade-ins of armor, if all you have is this flak jacket, you're in pretty good shape, because this flak jacket, believe it or not, offers more protection than that bulletproof vest. This old flak jacket right here, yes, it weighs 9 pounds. Yes, it's heavy, but it's rated to level 2. And the Bulletproof vest is only rated at 2A. So a lot of people, even when I wore that flak jacket as a Marine, I had no idea that it would stop handgun ammunition. Nobody ever told me that until I read it and until I started shooting a few of these. So if you can find an old flak jacket and you think you may need some level of protection from handgun ammunition, might not be a bad idea to give it a try. All right, before I go into this particular model that I'm wearing and why I've been wearing it this morning, let's see who's on. Thank you to the 52 folks that are joining us for a discussion on budget ballistics, budget body armor. Let's see. Doug says good morning, and Doug Lightfoot says, yes, Rich, he is retired from the Marines. Yeah, Rick, yeah. I am. Uncle Sam thanks me for the first of every month with my retirement check. Appreciate taxpayers out there. Thank you for that. All right, so let's go into this contraption I'm wearing this morning. This is an AR-500 system, Veritas plate carriers, and why did I get it? Well, I think Mr. Mike Seeklander either owed me some money or something, and he said, $200, man, what do you want to buy? And I'd been eyeballing these because they had a December special on them, and I thought, you know what? I'll write it off on taxes. Coffee with Rich, because I get to come on here and talk to you guys about it. So there goes $200. AR stands for abrasion resistant high carbon alloy steel. This stuff, the fact that it's an AR-500 is just the name of the company, but it also is the name of the steel. Abrasion resistant 500. 500 is the Brenner rating on the hardness scale. So that's what that means. And you can pick up one of these plate systems. The carrier, the two plates, etc. This one's cut for a right-handed shooter, so the plate is a little bit slimmer here so that I can actually shoulder a rifle. It's in Coyote. It's got a trauma pad in it, etc. It's not that bad. I do have some problems with steel. Let me be completely candid with you. The problem is spalling, man. If you've looked at anything online, you know, as these things are struck with the rifle rounds, there could be a lot of spalling. So what AR-500 has tried to do is they've got a Paxson coating that's on here. You know, when you think about something like this flak jacket stopping bullets, as the bullet comes in, the energy transfers like that, and the bullet is captured, more or less, and will fall to the ground or be embedded in the Kevlar. With these, you don't have that. The bullet impacts and fragments and splatters. Now, the problem is look where it could potentially splatter if I'm struck here. I could be splattered here. I could be splattered in the crotch. Not good. So they put this Paxson coating on there. It's like a bedliner coating that's designed to mitigate a lot of the spalling that you would normally have. So thanks for the 59 folks that are joining me this morning. Will it work? I don't know, man. If you watch on YouTube, you can find a lot of videos of folks shooting these plates and with varying degrees of success. The AR-500 company, if you go on their website, they do a test with balloons all the way around it, and they're shooting this plate, and this Paxson coating seems to be catching the spalling so that you're not getting hit by that fragmentation. Because if you've been hit, I went to a military school one time, man, they had us shooting steel real close, and people were catching jackets all day, and one dude got one embedded in his face. Not pretty. So if you've been struck by that stuff, you know it is no joke. So I don't want to catch a lot of spalling here. That might be bad for me. And then the other problem with these steel plates is, let's say I am struck by a 55 grain green tip. Then yes, it's going to go through me, and it's going to push all that steel and everything into my body with that round going through. So bad stuff. If you need ballistic protection for under $200, you can pick up one of these. You can pick up a probably old helmet and an old flak jacket for less than $200, that combo, and have level 3A protection for your dome and level 2 for your torso. If that's something you think you need, do I think you need it? I have no idea. I don't know what your set of circumstances are. I just happen to have this old stuff laying around in a sea bag, and I'm always looking for something to talk to you guys about. And I thought, with this pandemic going on and potential civil unrest coming, might not be a bad idea to have something like this laying around. The last thing I'll tell you, man, TSA that guards the friendly skies. You know, TSA says that you can fly with body armor. You can fly with it in your carry-on, and you can fly with it in your checked baggage. So that's pretty cool. The only caveat, as you would imagine with TSA, is they leave it up to the agent there whether they think it's okay or not, which I hate when they do that, because make a blanket policy or not, because every airline, every airport is a little bit different. If you fly a lot like I do with firearms, you know that some it's a breeze and some it ain't. So before I get off here, what kind of questions do you got for me? Thank you to the 58 folks that are on this morning. We're talking about body armor on a budget. We've discussed Kevlar helmets, flak jackets, some of my old police vests, flak jackets, all this kind of stuff, where you can pick it up, why you might need it, the aged armor study we talked about this morning. Who has questions for me before I jump off here? One of my jiu-jitsu partners, Mr. Michael Seymour, is on. My sister-in-law, Miss Lydia, is on. Good morning. Donald says, my gunny called it a flak jacket. Yeah, I was a gunny for 3 years, man, before I went over to the dark side and became a chief warrant officer. Us gunnies say some crazy stuff. Any questions for me? Do you feel AR-500 is worth it? John asks. I will tell you, man, I'm really impressed with the quality of this product. I got to be honest with you. When I got it, it was incredibly well packaged. It seems to be incredibly well constructed. For you know, I think I paid $234 for this out the door. That's shipping, tax, trauma pad, everything. I think so. For $200.34, and that is 19 pounds. It is heavy. Like I said, there's some concerns I have. I would rather have a ceramic sappy plate. But for a brand new product like this, and for the small, less than 1,000% chance that I'm ever going to wear it or need it, I think it's pretty good to go, man. It's a great question. Let's see what other questions we got here. Mike says, good morning, late but safe. Dan says, body armor for backpacks, college student application. Yeah, you know, you could probably, like Doug Lightfoot said, you could probably pick up something like this, a used police model. And I'll just show you something real quick. Take out, Velcro's at the bottom. You pull out one of this thin plate and put something like this in the backpack. I mean, why not? For as cheap as you can probably pick those up at supply stores. Or if you want to get, you can find online all kinds of plates that are cut to the size you want. Even these thin fiberglass models, about a 1/4 inch thick. They weigh almost nothing. And for maybe $100, $200, I think it's a great idea. So good question. Gene says, how much is the rig you're wearing? This one right here, Gene, this is the AR-500 Veritas, and it was $234, and that's shipping, that's both plates, curved with the right cut here, trauma pads, everything you see here for $200. And I paid for it with my money so I could talk to you guys about it and actually run it. It weighs about 19 pounds. It ain't light, but the other thing is you can PT with this thing on. If all I do with it is hike on it to put a little weight on my body, or maybe do weighted push-ups or dips, okay, great. You can do that. Let's see. Gary says hello from Marylandistan. Good morning, Gary. Michael C. Moore says good morning, sir. Michael, I can't wait to roll with you again, brother. Michael tore his knee up a little bit, but I think he's ready to get back on the mats when this COVID goes away. Doug says a local shop here in the Columbus area also makes ballistic clipboards for backpacks too. What a great idea. Actually, something that you can use, a clipboard, stuck down in there. I love that idea, Doug. What do those run if you know? John says, thanks. Alan says, believe it or not, I use body armor while instructing on the range. Does AR-500 make soft body armor? I believe they do. Here's one of the problems with AR-500. And again, I'm not bashing them. I'm standing here wearing the thing. But they do not submit their products to the National Institute of Justice for independent testing. They do send their products to independent labs that use the NIJ's testing protocols to determine whether the body armor is good or not. So the website for AR500 will tell you that it meets NIJ standards, but please understand it's not tested by the NIJ, it's tested by a third party. So having said all that, they do make soft body armor. I think they do have 2 or 3 products that have been independently verified by the NIJ, but not all of them have. But let's be honest, man, you can go on YouTube and find lots of videos of these things being shot. And the only one that I recall seeing penetrated was, like I told you, which isn't really a surprise to anybody that knows much about that green tip military ball round. That stuff's got an armor-piercing projectile in the center of it, and at 55 grains, traveling at over 3,000 or like 3,300 feet per second, it's punching right through armor, no problem. Let's see what we have here. Rasmus says the AR500 vest looks good, but it's only covering 80% of your chest. Why is that? That's all these plates are designed to do. Just give you a little bit of trauma protection right here in the center. You can actually buy them slimmer than this, believe it or not. You can get swimmer plates that allow you to get full movement to swim in, although I can't imagine swimming in this thing. But they give you more room. If you're looking for more protection, I mean, they make one with side panels here to protect you here. But again, think about your threat modeling, what you need it to do for you, if you need it to do anything for you, and then move forward with that. Great question. Matt says they say the green tip penetrate level 3, but not the level 3 plus. What do you suppose the chances are of civilians running into green tip that's able to travel at those velocities? All the research I've done seemed like it had to come out of at least a 20-inch barrel. Yeah, Matt's exactly right. About a 20-inch barrel, 55 grain. I mean, that's the thing about this stuff. Matter of fact, if you look on this body armor right here, it'll tell you 22 caliber, 40 grain long rifle, 6-inch barrel, traveling at 1,050 feet per second. It can stop it. And it's very specific, like the 9mm 155 grain jacketed hollow point fired from a 4-inch barrel, traveling at 1,160, it'll stop it. So who's got a chronometer out there to test bullet speeds and weights in the barrel? I mean, nobody does. So is that vest enough? I don't know. You got to understand what your threat is. I will tell you, you can read the DOJ studies and determine that most people are shot and killed with handgun caliber ammunition. Like to your point, I think your point is great, man. Who's going to get shot by a green tip? It certainly ain't going to be me, because that means some military dude's firing on your buddy Rich Brown. Ain't going to happen. I'm a law-abiding guy. So think about your threat model. If you're going to pull security in Africa, are you thinking about wearing something like this? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be good enough. You got to consider what is your threat going to be using? What caliber do you need to prepare for? No, great point, man. There's so many variables to these things and what kind of body armor, what kind of protection you need. It can really, you can get lost in the minutia, man, or at least I can. So think about it. Robert says, I have similar armor package with the anti-spall coating. Would like to trade up to some good ceramic plates. Just don't know where to start and what brands really are worth it. Yeah, and I mean, you got to do your research. The other thing is how much. For the price of these steel plates, they're so cheap. You start getting into ceramics and you're talking about potentially well over $1,000 for a good set. So, you know, what do you really need it to do? Robert says, let's see, Robert. 62 grain stuff will punch through. I keep at least 1 mag of that. I read that the 5.56 62 grain was being stopped by this. Matter of fact, I think I watched a video of it last night. The 55 grain not, but the 62 grain was. So anyway, I don't know. Most rifle rounds, matter of fact, anybody wearing a soft body armor, a rifle round will go right through. So think about that. Alan says, that's why, Jeff says, as a federal firearms instructor, I have always worn body armor. Closest I have come to getting shot was a new shooter on the range. And like Alan says, yeah, that's why he wears it while he's instructing. That is so true, man. And any of y'all that have done a lot of firearms instruction know it's some scary stuff. Normally, if I'm doing one-on-one firearms instruction, we use the SIRT handgun, the shot indicating resetting trigger, the laser you know, it's not a real gun. I let them do that, show me their gun handling, and after 10 or 15 minutes, we'll put the live in their hand, unloaded, and see how they handle that. Mark says, always a pleasure, Rich. Great show, great information, Mark says. Bruce has joined us. Guys, I kept you on here for 45 minutes. Look at that, time has flown. I'm going to give you one more chance for questions when I finish my coffee, and then I'll let you get on with your day, man. 62 folks on, 63. We just did a long discussion on body armor on a budget. Hard kind, soft kind, the testing standards that the NIJ has in place. If you're just joining us, man, sorry you're coming in late to the show, but please go back and watch the full show if you're interested in some sort of ballistic protection. Any questions for me before I jump off? And again, next week we're going to be talking about some of Andrew Branca's products that you should probably want to take advantage of over at the Law of Self-Defense. Hey, Semper Fi, brother. Good to have you on the show. All right, guys, thank you for coming out, man. I'm going to be respectful of your day. I know it's Friday. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful Friday here in East Tennessee. I want you to get out there and enjoy the day, man, as much as you can. Spend some time with your family. Research a little bit about body armor if you think this is something you might want to have in the back of the closet to run one day, or if you teach firearms, probably not a bad idea to get something like this. So thank you for coming on. Remember, the fight is coming. Be ready.